What is up, college sports fans, Big 12 fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Couz. I am joined here with my good friend, Mountaineer Paul, and we are live. And we are here to serve you up a shot of top shelf college football content on tap in this live episode, what I like to call Couz's Corner Happy Hour. We are going to focus on college football conference realignment, the latest news out about the ACC and their now possible expansion. It's like a never-ending saga, man, from one conference to the next. So, anyway, the big story is the ACC looking to potentially add Cal and Stanford, and now apparently they're looking also to add potentially SMU from the American Conference. So, getting more interesting. There might be another group of 5 team that has a chance to step up into the Power 5 ranks. I'd like to thank everybody for being on here. Right now, we've got UC Fez in the house. We've got Alan Aaron. We've got John Kelly, Jace K, WVU Mountaineer Larry with Kenny, Daniel Gigax, Timothy Green, Curtis D316, and I think I said Alan already. Yeah. So thank you all for being on here. Remember, guys, the way this works, as we got more people filtering in, if you want to make sure your comment gets seen, you can always drop a super chat at the bottom by hitting the $sign right beside the chat box. It'll either say comment, might say something, whatever. It may depend on how you're viewing this live stream. But thanks for Brandon Kinsley for joining us. But anyway, so Paul, first off, how you been today, man?
Doing good, man. We got to record a couple videos earlier today that'll be out in the morning on our basketball channel. And on my football channel, there's a little tiny surprise for you guys embedded within these videos. It's nothing too crazy, nothing about the Mountaineers, but something that I think you guys will like and enjoy that follow us. So pretty cool day so far.
Yep. And just a reminder, guys, at the bottom of the screen, I have my club level VIP members. That's level 2, $4.99 a month level. If you want to make sure your name gets on that list that's scrolling at the bottom, you can be sure to join. And later I will also have my pub level, which is my $2.99 level VIP members as well. And one of the perks is if you're a channel member and you leave a chat in the comment section, there will be a little badge beside it. It makes it a little bit easier for me to see it, and members get their chats read first. But let's dig in. I want to start off by sharing the story that came out from Ross Dellinger yesterday, and then talk about what I heard earlier today on Sikkim 365. But Ross Dellinger put out this article. Hold on a second. Yeah, let me pull this thing up here. I clicked the wrong thing. All right, here we go. Ross Dellinger put out this article on Yahoo. Says ACC considering SMU in addition to Cal and Stanford. The expansion conversation in the ACC goes beyond Stanford and Cal. A third school, SMU, is in consideration, sources tell Yahoo Sports. At a meeting of league presidents on Tuesday, executives explored the possibility of adding all 3 universities or inviting only the Pac-12's 2 members. Administrators are expected to continue examining the expansion options and will review financial models for both scenarios, adding 3 or adding just 2. For more than a year now, SMU has held various degrees of dialogue with several leagues in its pursuit to join a power league, including the Big 12, Pac-12, and ACC. A small private school, SMU resides in one of America's most populous metro areas, Dallas, and in the heart of a talent-rich football state. Maybe even more important, the university would arrive at a reduced rate. Employing a rich donor base and a healthy desire to advance to the Power 4 level, the university is open to foregoing conference distribution pay for at least their first 5 years. This is unheard of, folks. In the ACC,
that's insanity.
It is. SMU officials held similar conversations with Pac-12 administrators. The financials are the most significant piece to potential ACC expansion. ACC schools are handcuffed for another 13 years as part of a binding agreement tied to an ESPN contract that pays league members only a portion of Big Ten and SEC TV cash. The ACC announced a distribution of $39 million last year, most of which came from the TV contract. In expanding, the league must avoid reducing the annual distribution paid to each team to supplement new schools. That is a non-starter, several administrators tell Yahoo Sports. A perk of the ESPN contract, the network is required to increase its base distribution to the conference in a way that pays each new member the same annual rate as others, what's termed as pro rata. However, financial complications go much deeper. To offset the additional travel costs of acquiring Stanford, Cal, and or SMU, Current ACC members will need additional revenue from the network, or Stanford and Cal would have to agree to enter the league for a partial share, such as 60 to 70% share, conversations of which are ongoing. Let me see if there's anything else of note here. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the highlights of this thing. And I actually heard today Billy and Bodie, who covers SMU for Pony Express. I think they're a part of 24/7. They're a part of one of the, or I think it may be on 3. I don't want to get it wrong, but it's Pony Express. He covers SMU, so he's been covering this story from the beginning, and he's saying that the Stanford and Cal are willing to come in for 50% share, is what he's hearing. And he's also hearing that Notre Dame is pushing hard to get Stanford and Cal in the conference. So that's going to carry a lot of weight. So,
yeah, if Notre Dame wants it, it'll happen, flat out.
Yeah, you think so? Yeah.
Unless they're trying to pull something, Yeah. But just an odd fit. All these schools, especially SMU, coming into the equation, who is, has not been a Power 4. I mean, it's going to be hard to get used to saying that, but they haven't been a Power 5/4 in a long time, and although they played good football here recently and everything like that, and Sonny Dykes really put them guys back on the map. That you want to talk about a rise for that school, a meteoric rise quickly after being dead for so long. That would be a nice cap in the feather in the cap for them to go to the ACC. Not so much for Stanford and Cal. I mean, it would be a lifeline for sure for them to keep them relevant and playing against like-minded and likewise competition. Except in the Olympic sports level, Stanford would dominate the ACC over all that. But a lot of them. But it'd be interesting to see how this plays out, man. Like I said, remember when the ACC was first devised, had to be teams on the Atlantic coast only, and somebody joked and said, obviously the Pacific Ocean touches the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, it's crazy. Isn't it?
So I guess that's how they're justifying it.
Yep. Got a super chat here from Mr. John Teal. Thank you, John. He says, "Hey, George." Yes, Brett. What you got there, bud? With the skeleton. So I guess he's talking about death to the Pac-12. I'm assuming is what John Teal's emulating there, John. I appreciate the super chat, man. That's pretty funny. What you got there, bud?
Yeah.
Saw somebody in the chat asking about. Let me see. So I'm a little confused. Jace is asking, I'm a little confused about all the Pac-12 drama. There are so many sources and people saying different things. Can you briefly recap what is going on and what is fact and what is speculation? Jace, I'm not sure which part of the Pac-12 story are you talking about. If it's about is it about what happened last week, or are you talking about what's going on now with the remaining 4 schools? Can you be a little bit more clear in your question? But yeah, and I'm seeing all kinds of comments, and I'm gonna be honest, guys. I've been traveling in that last couple of days, so I'm sure there's probably some stories out there I haven't seen yet. So bear with me while I sort through some of these comments and get to some of the stuff that's been out there. Apparently, Clemson is talking to about getting out by the 15th, is what some people are saying in the comments. But back to this Pac and ACC thing, man, because most of you saw in the thumbnail, I've got it. Atlantic Coast Conference, and I have Atlantic struck through, and it says Coast to Coast Conference, because that's basically what it's going to be. But Billy and Bodie, once again, the guy that covers SMU on Sikkim 365, said that he thinks this has a really good chance of happening, and he's hearing actually that there's a better chance that they take all 3 schools versus just the 2 schools. And something else he said was the reason he thinks, in his opinion, this is a great move for the ACC. Number one, it will get the ACC network into Dallas, Texas, and it will get the ACC network into obviously the San Francisco Bay Area, which is a huge, you've got 2 major markets, 2 of the top markets in the country, and they will get more carriage fees for carrying the ACC network, which will be a big boost for the conference. Then on top of that, Obviously, they do have a pro rata that would be added in. And by SMU not taking a full share, what that does is what money they would be getting, according to Billy, would actually be split up and go to the remaining schools in the league. And he estimated that each school would get about $3 million from that. And then by Stanford and Cal taking only half a share, he figures there'd be another $6 million. So each school could get potentially somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million from these two schools coming in to the conference.
Yeah, and that puts them up into
that puts 50s? Them up in the mid 40s, low 50s, depending on, So it still doesn't close the gap with the SEC and the Big Ten, but it gets them closer, according to him. Now, this is all what he's hearing. None of this is fact. None of this is a done deal. This is all speculation at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it looks like to me, from the outside looking in, that the ACC is trying to do something to try to keep schools like Florida State
to stabilize. Yeah,
from trying to keep them from leaving the conference. And whether this does it or not, who knows? It'll be interesting to see. If you add that into the unequal revenue distribution they'll get from the college football playoff money and potentially the NCAA tournament money, maybe that'll be enough to keep them around. Who knows? We'll see. But it's just baffling to me that SMU is willing to come in basically free.
Yeah, right. That's you got to think what they make in the American Conference right now isn't a ton. It's probably about what we made in the old Big East, maybe a little more.
$7 million is what he said.
Yeah, so that's about what we made in the old Big East.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think we made maybe 7 to 10, between 7 and 10, in the Mountaineers, us, right, in the old Big East. It was a horrible payout. Do you mind if I answer a question, Couz?
Not at all, buddy.
That somebody had. Friction Hitch said, "Are Arizona and Utah worth it without California recruiting?" And I like that question. I want to speak on it for a second. Mm-hmm. From everybody I've spoken to, at least at Arizona, and I'm assuming people at Utah feel similarly. Think about all of the teams that recruit in California that are not going to be irrelevant as well, if nothing happens for them. Stanford's probably always going to be relevant because of the other sports, but in football and basketball, if they don't get a lifeline, that's a big blow to California recruiting. Cal, that's a blow to California recruiting. And Arizona feels like they can recruit in California no matter what, according to their president. In that interview they did in the Big 12 welcome, or whatever you want to call it, the introduction to the Big 12, he felt really confident that he's been told by people that Arizona is going to be able to recruit in California, always have been. So I know when Rich Rod was there, he hit it really hard. So I do think they'll still be able to recruit in California. I don't think they're going to lose it totally. Just my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that for answering that, Paul, because I didn't. I missed that question somehow. But yeah, this ACC thing is crazy. And I'm going to pull something up that I saw. Somebody sent me today. Alan Walker, thank you for the super chat, man. I'll read it here in just a second. Somebody sent me something earlier today that I want to share. Okay, this is a letter from Deep South. Deep South College Football posted this on their Twitter account from Gene Williams, owner of the War Chant site, which covers Florida State. Okay. He says, sorry for the long delay between updates. The lines have really closed up the last couple of days. Not surprisingly, Florida State and others in the inner circle have things on lockdown. This seems to correspond with a lot of Florida State bigwigs being in Tallahassee the other day. Sounds like it was an informal meeting which included golf, which is probably how they were able to get around the state sunshine law. That said, it seems likely that FSU's future in the ACC, penalties, and the grant of rights, SEC versus Big Ten, were discussed in some capacity. Here's the most this second paragraph is where really all the meat of this is. Despite the lockdown and the flow of information, I did hear that there have been increased chatter between FSU Clemson and the SEC. I heard this from 2 different sources the other day, but was waiting in hopes of getting a little more clarity on the nature of this chatter. Is an offer being tendered, or is this just very preliminary talk about 2 ACC schools jumping to the SEC at some point in the future? One highly placed Big Ten source said their conference is now proceeding ahead on the assumption that FSU and Clemson will be in the SEC soon, and as such have their eyes on North Carolina and Virginia. Note, don't listen to what you might hear from people like Greg Sankey when it comes to the possibility of the SEC adding Florida State and Clemson. No conference commissioner tips their hand before moves are made, and we've all learned that. We've all learned that with what happened, except for Brett Yormark. He pretty much tells you what he's going to do, and then goes and does it, right? The only other nugget that came my way is that ESPN is anticipating huge TV ratings for Florida State and LSU. Also, an internal study confirmed much of what Michael Alford laid out in last February's Board of Trustees meeting. FSU is squarely in the top 10 when it comes to college football TV ratings. And Florida State is the only non-Big Ten SEC school other than Notre Dame in this rarefied air. So it looks like there's some steam now around Florida State and Clemson to the SEC. Don't know how true this is. Just a little nugget I thought I would share with you guys as to what chatter is out there on Twitter. And apparently that's, like I said, it came from Deep South college football, and it's supposedly a letter from someone who covers Florida State. So just, constantly new stuff coming in, man. This is just getting crazier and crazier. Unfortunately, my day job was keeping me from being able to keep up with all of it. Let me get to the super chat real quick from Alan Walker. Alan, thank you, man, for your support here. $5 super chat. He says, the cracks of the Pac-12 started years ago under former Commissioner Larry Scott. Washington State and Oregon State are now running scared. Yeah, man, I'm really concerned.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, about those 2 schools, man. Their fans are passionate fans just like the rest of us. They deserve to have their schools, in the spotlight at the quote unquote big boy table, as some like to call it. Unfortunately,
Oregon State's playing as well as any team in the country.
They're ranked top 25 preseason. They got DJ Uyunglele coming in at quarterback. Things are really looking up for them, man. So for this to happen it's really sad. And us West Virginia fans, we've been there. We've been in a conference that was falling apart. We fortunately were able to land on our feet. I'm hoping that Washington State and Oregon State do land on their feet. Now, right before I started my live stream, I was on I'll still call it a Twitter Spaces that a UCF fan hosted, and guess who was on this Twitter Spaces for the very first time ever speaking that I know of, at least, was MHVER3, the West Virginia fan who's always tweeting out about realignment. He actually was on this Spaces. And according to him, and I wasn't able to get all the details because I was doing multiple things preparing for this live stream, but he says that there is still a chance. It's all basically a lot of it's going to hinge on what Stanford and Cal does, but there is still a chance that those 2 schools, he says there's still a chance to end up in the Big 12. So, and he says Fox is not going to pay for it because they're done, and he don't even know if ESPN will pay for it. But he thinks that there's a potential for Amazon to come to the table as a third entity to pay for more games and to help pay to bring them into the conference. Now, I don't know if it's Washington State and Oregon State alone, or if it would have to be all 4 schools from the Pac. And I think the Pac-12 network was even somehow involved in it, that maybe Amazon will take over the Pac-12 network or not take it over, but Big 12 will take it over. But then Amazon will basically use it as their way to stream games. But there again, that all came from a Spaces that MHVER3 was on. And by the way, he said where his name comes from. It stands for Major Harris version 3 is what it stands for. He used to be called Major Harris on message boards. He got kicked off. So then he was Major Harris version 2. He got kicked off again. So now he's Major Harris version 3.
Interesting. Very interesting.
All right. So that's, there is still hope out there. My point of saying that was there is still hope for Oregon State and Washington State. Obviously, we've heard the news about them potentially, joining the Mountain West. There's been talk that the Mountain West and those schools could merge into one conference and take the Pac name, so that they can try to keep their power status. There's all kinds of different scenarios. There's talk about the AAC merging with those 4 schools, there's just all kinds of different,
It's going to take, it's going to take a mixture of those 3 conferences to somehow. It's going to involve Fresno, Boise, SMU, the remaining Pac. You might, in San Diego State, you might be able to justify a Power 5 conference at that point. Those teams all have in Memphis, maybe. You start paying those schools like, even in the mid-tier, what we've been getting, they will rise just like anybody else that gets paid like that and treated like that and can recruit to that level. So I don't know about all of them, but I think there's potential with a few of them, especially SMU, San Diego State, all have great potential. It's all about looking to the projecting to the future for them. And everybody wants what you've already done. You have to have a brand right now. They can't really project for it, right now.
Right. Terry Rich, he says, Couz, UNC and Miami AD stated they're in the ACC till the end. You realize that's the exact same thing all the Pac-12 ADs said as well before they jumped ship a couple days later. They have to say that. They have to say it. Now, I'm not saying they're not telling the truth. None of us know. But an AD is not going to say, hey, we're leaving, because then it ruins everything at that point. You can't let them know what you're doing. News breaking that Stanford and Cal not looking likely to ACC per ACC presidents. Interesting. Where did you see that at, Rob, if you don't mind me asking? Got a couple super chats in the house here. John Teal, thank you, man. He says, might as well take them. Then 4 spots from ACC. Then we got Matt Ritson. Stanford and Cal go to ACC. Bad move. Coast school money. Yeah, basically, I think what Matt's trying to say there, the travel expenses. And that was actually something I meant to talk about. The travel expenses, they say, would be covered. The money the fact that the schools wouldn't take a full share would basically cover the travel expenses of the existing schools in the league. That was part of the reason they wouldn't take they would take a smaller share. Pete Thamel, Paul, is who he said broke the news. So if you won't mind, are you looking?
Yep.
If you don't mind, see if what you find about Pete Thamel. Thanks for sharing that with us, Rob.
7 minutes ago, sources: ACC presidents met tonight, and the pursuit of Stanford and Cal for conference membership has, quote, hit significant roadblocks. There had always been long odds because there wasn't ever a significant value add. So that's worth its weight in gold. Pete Thamel's reporting it. I know he misses on things from time to time, just like anybody else, but that's pretty.
Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward. So
yeah. Thank you, Rob.
I don't think I can see a world without Stanford being relevant. It's weird.
Well, if Rob says he is close with the Clemson situation, and Clemson will be gone by the weekend. Rob, I appreciate that, man. I'll be it'll be interesting to see. I know I did a couple of videos a few weeks or several months ago about Clemson, and there's some Clemson YouTube channels out there that have talked about it, and they're basically saying the same thing. I got some pushback for saying it, but I was just repeating what he said. But a lot of people didn't believe it would happen.
And what is this, Couz?
WSU is going to be filing for Chapter 11 as a school their athletic department is gone. Wow, I didn't know that. Is that news, Ron, or are you just assuming? I did hear their AD put out a statement today basically blaming the Pac-12's failure on bad leadership. I mean, he openly said it today that it's all because of bad leadership. Years worth of bad leadership. John Teal says 4 Pac, SDSU, Fresno, Boise, Utah, Rice, SMU, Tulane, and Memphis. Yeah, John was listing off the schools. I think he was listing off the schools that should be in a conference. That's a pretty decent conference right there. Would it be a Power 5 conference? I don't know, but it'd definitely be a good conference from a competitive standpoint, no doubt. I'll be honest with you. I think Boise State deserves to be in a power conference.
They do.
I know that a lot of people don't agree with that, and I know their academics are, if you want to talk about academics, I know a lot of people get pissed off when you talk about academics with college sports, but it does matter to a degree because it's college presidents making these decisions, and they want to align themselves with certain types of schools. But I mean, to me, Boise State has earned it on the playing field. And in the improvements they made in their athletic department and everything else. They have a really large, passionate fan base. Clemson and FSU were tied at the hip. Things are being done behind closed doors with the SEC. Oh, Ron said he's just predicting that. It's not actual news. He's just reading the tea leaves. Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen to Washington State. That would be terrible for their school and their program.
Especially in the wake. I know it has really little to do with it, but it would just be a bad taste in the wake of Coach Leach's passing. I don't know. I just, I would hate for them to only have one year left to really honor him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I wonder if them turning down Stanford, I wonder if that will piss Notre Dame off. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I wonder if they can be, could we leverage them in any way to get Notre Dame to look at the Big 12?
I doubt it, but it'd be nice. It's nice to think about.
It's nice to fantasize about. You'd be the biggest fish in the pond.
Mm-hmm.
You would be almost guaranteed. No, I mean, you got to think Notre Dame would be probably 75% chance to win the conference every year.
Right.
Not more. It'd be a roadblock for everybody else.
Yeah. MHV3 says ACC Pac-12 merger is going to happen. I don't know if it will or not. I don't think they want to align themselves with Washington State. I mean, if they won't add Stanford and Cal at a reduced share, I don't think they're going to merge with Oregon State and Washington State. Just my opinion. I saw something a couple of days ago, and I don't know where I can't remember where I saw it, and don't know how much truth there was, but there was actually some discussion about the ACC and Big 12 forming some kind of alliance, an actual contractual alliance.
Yeah, I saw that
together. That would to me that's a smart move, because then you can schedule more regional games for your schools. And
it keeps some of those rivalries with the old schools intact.
And then you can have your two and you have your two conference champions play at the end of the year. I mean, of course, they can both get a team in the playoff, but it will still be an interesting, call it the Big 12 ACC champ. I don't know whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but just to look at the other side and play devil's advocate, the winner of that Pac thing will be playing significantly less competition than the winner of the Big 12 one. Right?
Right.
I mean, not that I want their conference dead, but just looking at it like, if we have to go through whoever we go through, like, in the Big 12, it could be Baylor, Oklahoma State, and those schools. Who in the Pac-12 really? Kansas State, the way they've been playing. I just wonder who in the Pac right now can. I mean, Oregon State would be a good team this year, but going forward, what would they be?
Right.
It just seems like, unless you mix and match the schedules to where everybody plays everybody. Yeah, I mean, that would basically be what was the thing that the Big Ten the ACC and the Pac-12 going to do, that loose alliance?
Right.
Scheduling alliance, so maybe something like that.
Yeah. I think if the ACC and Big 12 do something, it'll be a contractual deal. I just don't know if the ACC presidents, they're a little bit similar to the Pac as far as their academic. I'm just going to say it, their academic elitism, and I'm not sure how. The only thing that might here's the only thing that might help there. The schools we just added into the league were all PAC schools. They're all highly rated academic schools. They're all AAU schools. Maybe that would make a conference like the ACC more willing to talk to the Big 12 now, because we have improved our academics standing, so to speak. We've got Kansas in the league who's an AAU. We now have 5 schools in our conference that are AAU schools. And hey, David Hackett, thanks for being on here, man. Appreciate you.
Who is it? Arizona State, Iowa State, Kansas.
No, Utah. No, Iowa State used to be, but they dropped out.
Oh, I thought they got it back. Okay.
No, they didn't get it back. No, I think somebody told me they purposely dropped it just because they didn't want to. I guess they didn't want to try to keep up with the. I don't know. I don't know what the reason was.
Must have to jump through hoops to get it.
Jason Shear reported that Notre Dame is pushing the issue, but right now there are only 10 votes in favor of the addition of Cal and Stanford. And it's my understanding that expansion requires a majority or
everybody has to vote.
Everybody. Yeah, unanimous is the word I was trying to think of. I drew a complete blank. Somebody on here asked me about my video where I talked about the Arizona State president making that comment about the private network, about Florida State starting a private network. I have not heard anything else about that at all. So I don't know how accurate that was. If he was just speaking, off the cuff, I have no idea. Jace, WVU is. I don't know anything about whether WVU is AAU eligible or not. I'm not sure. I don't think they do enough research right now. I think
it has to do with our
research.
Boom, and it has to do with our mission statement.
Yeah, but let's be frank here. All right, I'm gonna get on a little bit of a soapbox. Notre Dame, I think, does about the same, if not less, research than WVU does, and they got in. So I think there's a lot of political maneuvering that goes on as well when it comes to these associations like the AAU and things like that. It's not all about research. Let's face it. Browns and Beers, another channel member, man. We thank you for your support. He says, Wazoo is sadly lower than even Louisville in U.S. News and World Report's rankings. Hate it for them in particular. Beavs fans were jerks at times throughout the past few months.
That's correct.
Yeah, Paul and I know of one, don't we, Paul?
Oh, yeah. When that dude deleted his shit, pardon my language.
He was on. That's okay. He was on that thing tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
We should have been there.
The Twitter Spaces.
I would have let him have it.
Kenny Evans, another channel member. Thank you, Kenny, for your support. He says the SEC is just waiting to pounce. They have been too quiet.
Yeah, they're in the ultimate. They have the ultimate upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Browns and Beers again. He says Oregon State's coach is an alum from their BPA. Would be very tough to poach him even if they go Mountain West. I didn't know Jonathan Smith was an Oregon State alum. Thank you for sharing.
He is. Yes, he played there.
Awesome. Oh, you know what? I think I did hear that too. I had just forgotten.
Yeah, he's built that thing up, and
he was a quarterback, wasn't he? He was a quarterback there at one time, wasn't he? Okay. Yep. Yeah, I'd like to see them survive, and really Washington State too, man.
And they've got some of the coolest uniforms. I love those uniforms in Oregon State.
Yeah.
If you see the trend here, these are two universities that both have another Power 5 institution in the same state.
Uh-huh.
They're both smaller states. That's why we need to thank our lucky stars in West Virginia. There's not another Power 5 team, I think, to go against. It can work in your favor in the case of Arizona and Arizona State. You have a travel buddy. If one is selected and the other isn't, you can kind of leverage that. Right. But in the case of a smaller school like Washington State or Oregon State, like sports-wise, unfortunately, you have the powerhouse of Oregon and the historically powerful Washington in these states with you.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it tough, man. So much more desirable.
Yeah. One interesting thing, and I was thinking this the other day when Oregon went to the announced they were going to the Big Ten. Oregon football has only been good the last, 15, 20 years?
Since right around 2000.
And it's really mainly because of one guy.
Yeah.
Phil Knight. Think about that. And I'm not saying that this is nothing against Oregon, by the way. This is just an observation about why they are where they are. Most of these other programs have gotten where they are because of, either continuous success or, over a period of time or whatever. Having that brand, winning national titles, high academics in some cases like Stanford. They got theirs solely because they have Phil Knight and Nike's money. And it got me to thinking, man, it would be cool if West Virginia had that guy. They could just, I don't want to say buy our way in, because they did play well on the field too. I mean, they did some things to earn it. I'm not going to say it's all money, but the money helped get them to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had the resources they needed to be successful. John Waffle H2P. Thank you, John Waffle H2P, for the $4.99 super chat. I hope this isn't a pro Pitt comment before I even read it. Everyone needs to stop feeling bad for Washington State and Oregon State. They're garbage. Pitt is the real victim here. How is Pitt a victim? You're in. Good God. I should have known it was something crazy, John.
I think that's got to have some satire dripping off of it. Sarcasm. It's got to have.
It does. Knowing John Waffle, I'd say it does. Browns and Beers. But John Waffle, thank you for the chat, man. Browns and Beers says, you see the Thamel tweet saying there are no roadblocks for Stanford Cal? Oh, there are roadblocks. Sorry. Yes, I did.
Yes. So, yeah, we just talked about it, buddy.
Yeah, we did, Browns and Beers. Thank you for making sure we heard about that.
I wonder what the roadblocks specifically are. What do you think they are? Is it the travel? It's got to be the travel. It has to be a big topic of discussion.
Probably. I would think that's one of the things. And then the fact that they just don't bring enough value. Would be my guess.
It's a shame with if you get the 2010 version of Stanford, you wonder what the kind of money they were making then when their football was really relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, they would probably be an extremely desirable brand, let's say back in the Alex Luck era. I don't know that, but I would assume. I'm just surprised. I got to be honest. I thought Stanford was a bigger brand than they're being treated like. I thought they brought more value than this. I truly did. I mean, it's really shocking to me that they're having trouble. I figured they would have been, right. I mean, you're telling me that Arizona State's a bigger brand than Stanford is? Well,
here's what I think. And I've heard a couple of people talk about this, and a couple things. Number one, Stanford just doesn't care that much about sports, Paul. Their focus is on academics.
Right.
And there's schools that care about football don't want to be aligned in a conference with a school that don't. You know what I'm saying? Or sports. I should say sports in general. That's one, and I'm not saying I agree with that. That's just one train of thought. And then I've also heard that there's, I heard, matter of fact, it might have been MHVER3 that said this on the thing tonight. Whether you believe him or not, I'm not saying I'm not saying he knows what he's talking about or don't. I'm just telling you what he said. But he made a comment that the Big 12 did talk to Stanford, and they just weren't cultural fits for each other.
And I can agree with that. Although I think in basketball they are fit personally. But
yeah.
And maybe that does happen down the road. Let's say Stanford falls off and becomes the Mountain West or whatever it is in a conference like that. Maybe they go Ivy League. I think they could probably maybe swing that. I don't know if they qualify or what.
That's one thing other people have talked about. That's an option for them potentially. Now, they didn't get in they tried to get in the Ivy League once before and didn't get in, but they could try that again. But Ron says even Phil's money doesn't compare to Stanford's endowment money. Last year it was valued at $38 billion. I think the guys on 65 Sports were laughing and joking today. Stanford could buy the Pac-12 if they wanted to with their endowment money.
So they could exist if they had the right. Yeah, they could exist as an independent. That may be what they do.
Maybe. And then one person says Stanford has bad leadership. It could be.
Who is their leadership right now? I wish.
I honestly don't know. Well, actually, wait a minute. I do know. Well, no, I don't either. I've heard Tony Altimore mention the president's name multiple times on Mark Rogers' show, and I can't remember who it is. Actually, John Waffle, and I think I see what John's talking about now. He's concerned that Tosh, thank you,
man. They can't go to the Big Ten because of Penn State.
Right. He's concerned about that, and obviously he knows that he's pretty confident the SEC doesn't want them. So he's like we have been. He's a little concerned that if their conference falls apart, they're going to be stuck with nowhere to go. And that's a fair concern.
Yeah, Pitt will have somewhere to go. I mean, listen. I don't want to sit here and say anything nice about Pitt. Nobody ever does, but they'll have a home. They'll have a home if it comes down. They're too passionate about their sports there. And we need them to be relevant, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I want to hear John's thoughts. John, would you be okay if Pitt got into the Big 12? Say the Big 12 survives as the third power conference. If the ACC does fall apart, Big 12 still standing. Would you be okay with Pitt coming to the Big 12 if that was their only option? To be honest, I've had conversations with a lot of Big 12 fans, and they all want Pitt in the league because they recognize the value of having the backyard brawl in the conference because rivalry games move the needle.
Absolutely. Valuable, baby.
Oh, yeah. Stanford had that issue with their president where faking results in research study. That's right, Daniel. I had forgotten about that, man. Thanks for reminding me. He actually just stepped down, if I'm not mistaken. Over that controversy. Browns and Beers says, I want Pitt in the Big 12, even if it's just to see certain Pitt fans on Twitter cry over it. Alan Walker, thank you for the super chat, my man. He says, Stanford's president was recently forced out of the presidency over bogus research papers for the last 10 years. Wow.
That's insane, dude.
It is crazy. Absolute crazy. Thank you, Alan, for the support, man. And John Waffle says if the Big 12 has a seat in the playoffs, I would live with it. That's fair.
That's going to be a thing. I mean, the Big 12 is, with the teams that are in there now, how could you not have? I'm not saying that we certainly don't play at the top as strong a schedule as the SEC or Big 10, but from top to bottom, neither of those conferences have the consistency that we have.
Right.
In my opinion. That's just my opinion. But in a year, here lately, if you just look at what Iowa State, Kansas State, Baylor, and now Kansas is starting to turn into, just those teams alone with TCU going to the national championship game, it's the brutal conference day in, day out.
Yeah. I had a question here that says, from John Kelly, would BC and Syracuse be worth saving? Syracuse, yes. Boston College, I don't feel so good about.
I don't know. I mean, they had a brand, Yeah. Right. They kind of fell off around that 2000 mark as well. But leading up to that, they had one of the biggest football brands in America.
When they left,
they were top 25. When they left the Big East.
Yep. Every team, when you look at it through history, almost every team that has changed conferences, and it's been more of a lateral move and not like when you look at TCU and you look at Utah, they went up a level. So they've improved. But when you look at the schools who went vertically, went lateral moves, like Texas A&M going from one power conference to another, West Virginia going from I consider the Big East to be a power conference because it was at one time, to go from one power conference to another. You look at Pitt, Virginia Tech, Syracuse. Now Pitt,
Nebraska.
Pitt has started. Now Pitt has had some success in the ACC, but I don't think they've had the same level of success they had in the Big East. Now that might change now with because it looks like they're on the right trajectory with Narduzzi, or as Paul and I like to call him, Narducci.
Nar. Yeah.
But
Nar.
But
it's like that South Park episode. Can you get yourself some fresh nar?
Yeah. But I mean, but up until now they really haven't done much in the ACC. But most of these schools that have made lateral moves just haven't. They've been worse from a competitive standpoint. Nebraska's been the best example.
Yeah, and A&M probably.
Yeah, and I saw a weird name in the chat. I was just reading it. And Missouri's another one that hasn't done. They've struggled obviously in the SEC. You know why they've struggled? Because that's supposed to be our spot. Darn it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's not gonna lie. I wish we would have got that spot. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
I don't think
would it have been to make it? Would it have been me? I don't think we'd have been mediocre there either. We'd have been recruiting
we would have at first,
regional.
Yeah, but over time we would be able to build up. Yeah.
I mean, you look at where we would be recruiting at rather than where we've had to.
Mm-hmm.
We've had to convince kids that they're going to play in Oklahoma and in Kansas and Iowa, and you're recruiting kids in Virginia and Pennsylvania. It's not an easy sell. I don't think people think about that when they criticize us. It's not only the regional rivalries. It's try selling a recruit that he's not going to be playing in front of any of his family members on the road.
Right.
A lot of families love to go to road games. Well, I mean, if you play in the ACC and you're NC State, you've got Duke and North Carolina, and it's all within a little radius there. Wake Forest right down the road. There's 3 schools that your family can see you on the road at every single year. If you live in North Carolina. It's but with West Virginia and now UCF and Cincinnati are going to find out a little bit as well. There's going to be 3-4 games a year where unless you take a plane, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
Or if you want to like a couple-day drive.
When you look at West Virginia's primary recruiting area of Western PA, Eastern Ohio,
DC,
if you walked in the living room with an SEC patch on your chest and nobody else in that area was doing that, don't tell me you don't have an advantage. Right? If you're the only school in that area with an SEC patch, you have an advantage, in my opinion. If Pitt doesn't have it, and Ohio, even though Ohio State's Big Ten, I get it, but Ohio State wouldn't have it, and Cincinnati wouldn't have it, and Penn State wouldn't have it. You'd the only one have it. That's an advantage. And Maryland doesn't have it. That's an advantage, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. Now look, I'm not bashing the Big 12. I love the Big 12, but I don't think there's a school in America that wouldn't go to the SEC if they had the opportunity. You know what I mean? It's the SEC for crying out loud. Yeah, we'd love to have Pitt and Louisville in the Big 12, Scott. Absolutely. And for the arguments in the chat about
NC State as well
and Pitt, or about somebody said, yeah, Pitt won the ACC in 2021. I said until recently they hadn't had success. 2021 is recently.
Go find something before that.
Nemesis says, did Golden Blue Dude pass? Yes, he did, Nemesis. He passed back in April, unfortunately. We all miss him too, especially with all this college realignment stuff going on, man. Peanut Butter Hero says, Couz, do you spend more nights in a hotel room than an airline pilot? LOL. Not really. I just happen to do live streams when I'm in hotel rooms. I usually only in hotel rooms a couple nights a month, but it seems more than that to you guys. But it's just easy for me to do them because I don't have any distractions here. But yeah. Well, the last thing I wanted to touch on is and I know Paul's going to do I think Paul's planning to do a more in-depth dive on this topic, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it. But just want to remind you guys that Arizona State's AD did apologize today for the comments he made about West Virginia. So all is right with the world again. I think there's a few articles out there on that, but I think Paul may be doing a video on that in the next day or two, so I'm not going to steal his thunder. But yeah, Ray Anderson did issue an apology, so I'll treat that as a little teaser for Paul and his video tomorrow. But Paul, anything else you want to add about this realignment stuff, man? Any news that you've seen break?
No, I think we had some break while we were on here. That was about it. I'm having trouble holding my eyes open. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm trying to see if yeah,
Guys, don't forget to subscribe to Couz's Corner. If you're not subscribed, all 271 of you. If you're watching this show after the fact, leave a comment for Couz. Let him know what your feelings are on realignment. How do you feel about the news that had broke on the show this evening that Cal, Stanford are going to face significant roadblocks now, it seems, per Pete Thamel getting into the ACC. What does that mean for the 4 remaining members, and how do you feel about that? Do you not care? Are you sad? Are you happy that they're burning because of all the voting they did? Let us know. Also, guys, just real quick, want to plug me as well. Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. Me and Couz are on each other's shows all the time on a weekly basis. We also share a channel together, Hoops from the Hills, basketball only. Come check us out, guys. It's really been a show that's blown up for us and done way better than we expected. So at times it's outperformed both of our football channels. So it's done really well. And come holler at us.
Yeah, the logo up in the corner above Paul is the logo for the Hoops from the Hills channel that we do together. So, please go sub it up. And speaking of that, it segues right into this next comment by Jacob Yoho. Jacob, thank you for the super chat. He says, do you guys know about any basketball recruiting? Here's what we know, Jacob. Ethan Bach put this on his Twitter account, I think yesterday. He said, or maybe even earlier today, can't remember. He said that basically he's expecting somebody to hit the transfer portal that West Virginia will likely be interested in. He couldn't say who it is. Obviously, he can't until they're in the portal. He's just going by what he's hearing out there. So there's going to be somebody likely entering the portal that he thinks West Virginia may have a strong chance to get if they enter. We do know they're going after a couple bigs right now. One's a foreign player, another foreign player, which they've had some success with lately. Paul Mulcahy, a guy they were after earlier in the portal process, looks like he might get back into the portal after committing to Washington because he's not happy there. We'll see where that goes. Right now they have one more roster spot open for sure. Could they, do something like they did back when Hugs was here and, get more guys on the roster than has scholarships. Maybe they can do something like that. Hugs was able to do it last year. Maybe they can do something like that as well. Got another super chat here from Country Roads 5150. Thank you, Country Roads. He says, $50 million a year versus Big East at $12 million is success. If SEC ever invites us, we should run to SEC. The level of play is higher in Big 12. Yeah, absolutely run to the SEC. And I think any school would. I would love, I hate that we missed out on that opportunity back in 2011, 10.
10/11, yeah.
But it is what it is. Such is life.
Yep.
FSU will be gone on the 15th to Miami and Clemson with them. The landing spot isn't sure yet, but Saudi money is real. Just ask the PGA Tour. Everyone sells out for cash. Yep, cash. There was a rap album one time, if I'm not mistaken, Paul, says cash rules everything around me. Wasn't it? Who put that album out? Was that a Biggie or was that a Tupac? Who was that?
Yeah, you got me. Not exactly my forte.
Mine either, really, but I just remember it. Offering Ave signed with the basketball team today. That's right. Thank you, Curtis, for that reminder. He's the player from Israel that I'm really high on. Young guy. He's only 18 years old. A very good player. Very athletic. Can jump out of the gym and can shoot it. Browns and Beers channel member, thank you for the comment. He says WVU was Joe Lenardi's last team with a bye in the latest bracketology for what it's worth. I saw that. We saw that, Browns and Beers. Be on the lookout tomorrow. Paul and I'll do a video about it. Or Paul does anyway. Well, no, yeah, Paul and I on the basketball channel.
Yeah, we did one today.
Yep. I thought I saw another comment from a member up here earlier that I forgot to get to. Browns and Beers said, Brett definitely seems like the type of guy to have ASU's first Big 12 game in Morgantown. That would be cool. That would be very cool. Ren Baker was on 365 Sports today. I'm hoping to go back later and listen to that full interview with him. It was Wu-Tang Clan, Hummus. Thank you. And Alan, thank you guys. It was Wu-Tang Clan who put that album out.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we've been on here just about an hour. It's getting, on the eastern part of the country here. It's 10:30. I'm in a hotel, so it's probably quiet time. So I'm going to shut this thing down. Paul, don't forget to go check out Paul's channel, Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. Don't forget the Hoops from the Hills channel. Subscribe to both of those, please. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button on your way out. If you haven't hit it yet, make sure to drop a comment. If you're watching this on the replay, the comments, the likes, all that still helps, even if you missed the live. But thank you guys for everything. Thank you for your support. And we're out. Oh, and Q Country Roads.